going on, Jerome's? So the NFL draft is always very exciting. Your newest crop of Minnesota Fighting Vikings ready to take some gerbs, and that's the other side where there's some veterans on the rooster, whether it was the draft pick or high-profile UDFAs that could be in a little spot of trouble. But we got some winners. We got some losers in terms of Vikings veterans based on the 2024 NFL draft. First off, winners. King Kene Nwangu, as well as Dwayne McBride, last year's 7th-round pick out of UAB Blazer. So, yes, you got Ty Chandler. Yes, you do have Aaron Jones as well. But the Vikings spent zero goose egg D'Angelo Russell draft picks on running back when a lot of people thought that they could and should. Same thing with UDFAs. So, it's pretty clear that the Vikings see a role for King Kene, both in the new kick return rules, which are going to be fantastic, as well as McBride was a 7th-round pick last year, like we said, of the Kwesi regime. So maybe they envision more of a role for them this year. Now, it probably won't be much. I don't see the Vikings going 3-4 running backs deep, but in terms of some of the extra carries in terms of development in preseason, could see a little something there behind Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. Next up, winner number 2. It's pretty clear too. Wide receiver Brandon Powell. So right now, he is your clear wide receiver 3 because the Vikings, a lot of people thought that the Vikings could have gone receiver, especially day 3, but they didn't. And in terms of UDFAs, Ty James you like a lot, except could be more down the road, and Deshaun Jones could be more of a developmental guy. So as of right now, the Vikings, it's very clear that Brandon Powell is wide receiver 3. Now, Trent Sherfield is coming in as a free agent. Sure, Jalen Naylor, if he can stay healthy, can be a guy. Same thing with Tristan and Lucky Jackson. But I think right now it's clear, Kevin O'Connell has a lot of faith in Brandon Powell, bringing him over from their time with the Rams together. And also, Brandon Powell having that game-winning catch against the Falcons last year is beautiful to see. And yes, you got Jefferson, you got Addison, you got Brandon Powell. Right now he's your prohibitive favorite to be wide receiver 3 heading into training camp. Next up, winner number 3, eventually, left guard Blake Brandel. Well, could be left guard, could be right guard. But so the Vikings in free agency, they brought back Blake Brandel on a 3-year deal. They didn't sign Dalton Reisner. And in terms of open free agency, they really only brought in Dan Feeney, except I think he's more of a veteran swing backup. So I think that he's more replacing Chris Reed and Austin Schlutman. But in terms of the draft, Walter Rouse, I know Kwesi says that they want to kick him inside. I just don't see that. I think he's going to be a tackle-only guy. And Michael Juergens could compete for one of the guard spots. He was fantastic at Wake Forest, go Demon Deacons at guard last year, PFS number 4 guard in the country. But I think his future is going to be center, and I think that's more about Garrett Bradbury. So as of right now, I think that you can very confidently pencil in Blake Brandel as starting on one of the guard spots. Whether that's left guard or right guard, figuring out what happens to Ed Ingram long term. It's going to be interesting. So, big time win for Blake Brandel. Next up, winner number 4, Jaquelin Roy. So last year's 5th-round pick out of LSU. Didn't really get the time of day, but in terms of the draft, the Vikings, a lot of people did tie the Vikes to some defensive interior help, whether it's Byron Murphy II, whether it's Johnny Newton. But the Vikings, Levi Drake Rodriguez, LDR, is a major project, and he was taken in the 7th round. So it really is wide open for Jaquelin Roy to get some meaningful snaps in the rotation. Now, the Vikings did bring in Jonah Williams and Jerry Tillery, veterans, 5-techs, as well as re-signing Jonathan Bullard. But I think that the door is open. The door is open for Jaquelin to get some meaningful snaps and make an impact in year 2. So it's a big-time win for him. Next up, winner number 5. So Jonathan Grenard. So this one is interesting because Grenard coming over from the Texans, basically a trade with Texans for Danielle Hunter, and Grenard 12.5 sacks last year, a number of pressures. He was going to be good to go, perfect fit for what Flores wants to do. And the thing about it is Andrew Van Ginkel, very solid on the edge as well, but he's going to be more of a roving hybrid linebacker. And also the Vikings picking up Dallas Turner, who may not be a 3-down guy to start, maybe just a pass rushing guy, but Grenard benefited greatly last year being across from Will Anderson, Dallas Turner's former teammate at Alabama. Roll Tide. And I think that Grenard, there's some questions, and maybe some valid questions, is can he be the guy that gets all the attention from the offensive line protection? Can he still be a valuable number one edge rusher? Well, with Turner now, I mean, even if Turner's going to be a part-time player, he's going to get a ton of attention. So Grenard is still going to be able to get some of those favorable matchups, and I think that's going to help his production. So it really is going to be a pick your poison situation for the Vikings in terms of edge rushers. Next up, the winners, or not so winners. Number one, Evans and Booth. So even though Booth and Evans were highly drafted players in 2022, Booth a second-round pick out of Clemson, Evans a fourth-round pick out of Mizzou, it's not looking good. All right, so even before the draft, I mean, their ass was in the jackpot, and they were stacked on the depth chart. Booth couldn't really get the time of day last year with Flores, and Evans was benched several times. But even going into the draft with Blackman, the free agent Shaq Griffin, and Byron Murphy, I mean, it's pretty clear that they were stacked behind on the depth chart. And then, the Vikings spending a fourth-round pick on Kyrie Jackson, who is going to be 25 before he takes a snap, so he has to get on the field immediately. Also, you throw in Dwight McGlothern, who should have been drafted. I think the Vikings got absolutely huge, massive value with him as a UDFA. So I don't think that their playing time is assured. I don't even think that their spot on the 53-man rooster is assured. So those are a couple guys who really have to step up in OTAs and training camp. Not so winner number two, Bradbury. So I understand. Well, they wait until the 7th round to take a center, and Michael Juergens has extensive center experience, even though he played guard last year. And also, you throw in center Matt Cindric from Cal, who was undrafted because of injuries. I mean, the Vikings brought in two bona fide threats at center, and Bradbury, his contract gets very edible next year, and he is going to be 30, and he's had back issues each of the last 2 years. So it could be a spot where Bradbury's successor at the pivot is on the roster. And I think that it would be, the major threat is Juergens, because I think Juergens is super underrated. I think Juergens is going to be making an impact this year. Next up, not so winner number 3, Patrick Jones second and Andre Carter the second. So in terms of the edge rushers, of course, with Turner coming in, it's going to be a little bit rough for Patrick Jones second, who is in a contract year and has a ton to prove, but also free agency. So even though Daniil left, even though Daniil left, even though Wanham left, even though Davenport left. Sorry, I was laughing at Davenport. But the Vikings brought in Jonathan Grenard, AVG, as well as Jihad Ward, and then they draft Dallas Turner. So might not be a ton of snaps for Patrick Jones second or Andre Carr the second. Also, in terms of UDFAs, as I choke and die, the Vikings bring in Gabriel Murphy, who could be this year's Ivan Pace Jr., as well as Bo Richter, who's super interesting as well. I mean, Andre Carr the second, he may be phased out in terms of the developmental, practice squad, bottom of the roster, super big upside edge rusher, but we'll see. I mean, it's the second most important position in football, get the passer. So you certainly can never have enough guys who can get their own pass rush. Next up, number 4, Brian Asamoah. So Asamoah's interesting, where I want to believe in the pride of Oklahoma, except he's had injuries, can't really stay healthy, can't really stay on the field. And the Vikings, even though they lost Jordan Hicks, they brought in Blake Cashman outside. How about that? So Cashman and Pace are your two inside linebackers for now. Also bringing in Kamu in terms of a veteran stud backup as well as special teamer. And then you pick up Dallas Gant as the UDFA. Dallas Gant is a bad dude. Dallas Gant is a tackling machine, has tons of special teams experience. I think Dallas Gant right now, I would wager he makes the 53, and that might not be very good news for Brian Asamoah. Lastly, yes, kicker John Parker Romo. So brought in from the XFL, knows the new XFL kicking rules. That's all well and good, but you didn't spend a 6th-round pick on a kicker in Will Reichard for him not to make the roster and be the number 1 guy. And also, I mean, Reichard's an assassin. So, not looking good for John Parker Romo. But that's it. That's at winners and losers in terms of Vikings veterans from the 2024 NFL Draft. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.